In 1872, four young lads from the Gairloch came together in a Glasgow park to form the Rangers Football Club. Little did they know then that what they created would go on to become the world record-breaking institution it is now. Welcome to a Blues News special, where today we take you on the Founders Trail. So as the sun split the sky over Ibrox Stadium, fans gathered to go on a journey of discovery. They were to go back to 1872, when the Rangers were just a dream of four young lovers of all sports: Moses McNeill, his brother Peter, William McBeath and Peter Campbell. Most of all, they had a love of the emerging game of association football, and that love is shared by everyone boarding the bus, which will take fans from far and wide on a journey around Glasgow. Their trip tells the story of four teenagers from the Gairloch, who formed a football club which has since gone on to win 114 major honours and has a widespread loyal fan base around the world. The Founders Trail was the brainchild of Rangers supporters Ian McCall, Gordon Bell and Neil Stobie, who were striving to create an informative tour of the key locations which shaped the Light Blues' early history.
We're absolutely delighted that we're going to be taking a group of Rangers supporters now around on the Founders Tour, round about Glasgow, visiting the different sites that were so important in the club's formation. Where the boys played their first games, where they stayed, where they lived, where they worked, and ultimately where they were laid to rest. We started the tours last March, and it proved to be very, very popular. We actually started it off with a walking tour, and then we thought we'd hire the open top bus and take people around about the city that way, to make it a little bit more professional. We then approached the club after that, and we've put a stadium tour at the end of the Founders Tour.
Yeah, it's obviously great that the club is on board with it as well, but it's quite nice in a way, I think, that it's fans that have started this, because of course the story of how Rangers were founded, it was just four young boys who had this dream, and it's quite nice that it's the fans that have taken that on, and it's them that are looking to tell the story of the club's foundation.
Yes indeed, yes indeed. The fans can't get enough of it. You know, it's as you say yourself, it was four boys. They had nothing to start with, you know, no ball, no pitch, no kit to play in, and found a bit of ground at Fleshers Hall, and the story began there. And that's where we begin my story. We take them from here to Fleshers Hall, and how the story grew as the club grew.
And so, in the shadow of the Bill Struth main stand, with the splendid John Gregg's statue in the background, the fans on the Founder Trail begin their journey. The tour heads off from Ibrox down Paisley Road West, heading towards Glasgow Green. En route, Ian and Neil give an in-depth history of the club's founders, as well as picking out buildings associated with the men themselves. Included are 282 Paisley Road West, the former residence of Tom Vallance, one of the club's most prominent early players. Further down the road, the site of a club owned by Vallance is also pointed out. Today it's where the Viceroy pub and the La Fiorentina restaurant can be found. Onwards through the city, the bus nears its first and probably most significant destination, the Glasgow Green Football Centre. But to every Rangers fan, the area's original name resonates with the very soul of the club. Fleshers Hall will forever be known as the site of the Rangers' first ever game. Here in May 1872, they played out a 0-0 draw with Callander, and the venue would continue to be the team's home for the next 3 years. To mark this, a plaque was commissioned and unveiled in September 2009 by Heather Lang, granddaughter of Peter McNeill.
This is back in May 1872. The boys came down here from the West End. This was a desirable part of the green where sporting events were played, and the boys came on here. They had no ball to start with, no kit. Lucky enough to find a spare bit of ground, but this is where the Rangers set up and kicked the ball with the blue jersey on for the first time. It's an incredible part of the city for us.
Yeah, it really was a spare bit of ground as well. They had to come here several hours in advance to make sure they could get a game here, didn't they?
Yeah. Brother Peter McNeill would come down here and he would literally stand guard to make sure that a decent piece of ground. Sometimes we stand for 5 and 6 hours, you know, just to make sure that a decent piece to play their first football matches.
Rangers left their first home at Fleshers Hall in 1875 and moved to a new location in the west end of the city. As the tour winds through the streets of Glasgow's city centre, we travel through the famous Barras in the East End and along the Trongate. Here we can see the site of a restaurant once owned by Tom Vallance on Hutchison Street. The bus continues up through the grand streets of the town and round the sites of the wonderful George Square. Tour guides Neil and Ian have researched the founding fathers for the past 5 years and have discovered various building locations in the city centre, including the shop owned by the McNeil family in Renfield Street. The original location was in Union Street, where Moses McNeil also worked for the Lang family. Next stop on the Founders Trail is the site of Rangers' first ever Scottish Cup final appearance, the West of Scotland Cricket Ground at Hamilton Crescent in Partick. The tour makes a stop here at this historic ground, which was also the location of the first ever international match played between Scotland and England in November 1872. A plaque commemorating this event is displayed here on the clubhouse. Rangers' first final ended in a 1-1 draw against one of the great teams of the day, Vale of Leven. The replay, which was played a month later, again ended in a 1-1 draw. Vale of Leven went on to beat Rangers 3-2, but the fact this team of youngsters had performed so well cemented the club's place in Scottish football. After a break and some very welcome refreshments in the clubhouse, it was back on the road and past the former homes of founders Peter McNeil in Gibson Street and Moses McNeil in Balliol Street. Once Rangers had established themselves as a football club, the need for a home ground increased, and after 3 years playing at Fleshers Haugh, the team moved to Burnbank in Glasgow's West End. The ground was leased by the Glasgow Accies Rugby Club, and the Light Blues remained there until they moved south of the River Clyde for the first time to Kinning Park. The trail travels through Finniston and over the Clyde Arc, affectionately known locally as the Squinty Bridge, to West Scotland Street. The area might look inauspicious nowadays, but back in 1876 this was Rangers Football Club's home for 11 years.
In 1876, Rangers moved here from the west end of the city and held the ground here for 11 years. When Rangers first came here, this was actually a sprawling meadow, but industrialisation was spreading south of the river, and the city of Glasgow was starting to grow, and subsequently Rangers grew as well, as more and more people flocked out of the ironworks etc. around about here and into Rangers ground.
Yeah, Rangers up until that point had a bit of a nomadic existence. They'd started out in the East End at Fleshers Haugh, they'd moved to the West End as well at Burnbank. When they came to Kinning Park though, it was where they really first got a core support, if you like.
That's correct. This is where we were, as we know, we would eventually set down roots, and when they came here, the cracking piece of ground to play their football on, they started attracting a big support, and this was us setting down roots to the south side of the city, where we remain until today.
The tour continues and skirts by the current stadium at Ibrox, adjacent to the site of the club's first ground on the same piece of land. Opened in 1887, it was one of the most modern arenas of its time and was built for the princely sum of £750. From there, it was on to nearby Craigton Cemetery for the penultimate stop of the trail, to visit the gravestones of Peter McNeil and Rangers' most successful manager, Bill Struth.
It was a fantastic find. You know, we managed to locate the final resting place of not only our founder Peter McNeil, but the final resting place of our greatest ever manager Bill Struth. And we feel that it does bring this part of the day to a nice close. We started off in Fleshers Haugh, showing where the club was born, and we're finishing here at the graveside of our greatest ever manager.
Yeah, of course, it's not just the likes of Bill Struth and some of the founders that you've found. You've put a lot of work into tracing the gravestones of other former players, presidents, chairmen, and of course William Wilton, the club's first manager as well. You've managed to track all of them down in various cemeteries around Glasgow.
Yes, we have. Yes, we found that Mr Wilton and one of his players, R.S. McCall, and a former chairman, Mr William Craig, were buried in Cathcart Cemetery. And also here in Craigton is Joseph Buchanan, who was chairman of the club at the time when the Magnificent Main Stand opened in 1929. And there's been a couple of players from the 1877 team that were located. So as the research goes on, more and more of these places are.
By all accounts, there are plans to maybe map out the various gravestones of various Rangers people that people can go and look at in the future.
Yes, most definitely. We maybe look at doing that independently from the main thrust of the Founders Trail. There are other areas lying out at Hillfoot Cemetery in Bearsden, where the great Tom Valance is also buried, and we would look at incorporating that possibly in a separate tour sometime in the near future.
A humbling end to the Founders Trail sees the bus return to the magnificent Ibrox Stadium. The final destination sees fans taken on a tour of what's been described as one of the most iconic sporting venues in the world. The awe of this wonderful arena is reflected in fans' faces as they walk down the tunnel and up the marble staircase.
Oh, brilliant, absolutely first class. To see the stadium again, something unreal, magic moments.
How long have you supported the team?
Since 1945 when I dogged school to see the Moscow Dynamos. A lot of good memories, a lot of bad memories when they get beaten, things like that. I used to stop speaking to folk for a fortnight when we got beat. That's how a die-hard I was. Yeah, 1945, I dogged school, I went to Albert Senior Secondary in Springburn. I got a hiding from my dad when I went home because he was home on leave for the Navy. It was well worth it to see a good result. And it was the first time I've ever seen substitutes in the park when Tory Gillett counted 12 men in the Moscow Dynamo team. So there you are.
Tell us about the Founders Trail itself, the tour today. You must have really enjoyed that.
Absolutely fabulous. They guys have put an awful lot of effort into this. First class, a great bunch of guys there too. Places that really people wouldn't have realised associated with Glasgow Rangers. I didn't myself. Honestly, I didn't realise that the West of Scotland Cricket Club was something that Glasgow Rangers played at. No, it was fabulous, absolutely fabulous. The guys put a lot of effort in and it's really worth it. My highlight now is going inside that big door there and seeing the trophy room. As I say, I've supported Rangers for many years. I was a member of the Rangers Supporters Club in Grangemouth. But this is brilliant, absolutely first class.
I mean, I've got the book, but to see it in person is just phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
I mean, the whole thing takes 4 or 5 hours once you tie in the Tour of Ibrox as well, but at the same time, it's a really interesting afternoon throughout.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we cracked it today with the weather, but as I say, I mean, reading the book's one thing, but to get there in person, go up to the cricket club and so on and so forth, see where these people actually came from, where they're buried today, Mr. Sruth. Phenomenal. Great day out. Fantastic.
Yeah, how important is it for people to learn about the club's history?
Well, I mean, see, I sit here, funny enough, in East Enclosure. Been there for 25 years, but, you know, I've got an understanding of the club, but today, I mean, I've got a knowledge now going right back to our founding fathers, if you like, that you just wouldn't have had with it, these guys that do the tours today. So, no, it's fantastic. I mean, it should be part and parcel. You get a season ticket, you should get the leaflet and say, this is where we come from and be proud and so on.
I followed Rangers since I was tiny, so to actually see like who made it and whereabouts in Glasgow they come from, it's really cool.
Yeah, Jan, you're not from these parts. I'm assuming that you have found it really interesting as well, because it's probably a lot of it stuff that you really didn't know about.
I started following Rangers when I'm in Donna, and we're engaged now, and I've had an enthralling experience. It's been amazing, like just going behind in the history and that, because I've known like all the names of the football players, but going back to when it all started is really good.
How important do you think it is, Donna, for the supporters of the current era to learn about what's happened in the past, and particularly at the beginning of the club's history?
I think it's really important. It's good, it gives you a sense of where the clubs came from and just how grand it is. Like, you know, we come here on a Saturday to watch them, but to actually see how it was formed, to see like inside the stadium, you're always sitting there. To see that part's interesting, but to actually see who made it and what it came from, it's really good. It gets you like closer to the club, I think. You understand more of where they've come from.
Yeah, and obviously you're not a native here, but you must be really interested in the way that Rangers and Rangers supporters celebrate their past. How does it compare to what's done elsewhere that you're aware of?
I just feel that Rangers supporters are so passionate. Like wherever I've been here a couple of times, and the atmosphere is electric in the stadium, and everyone over here is. You just feel that the spirit like of the Rangers club, and you know how they really support their team properly. It's amazing.
Having been started on a regular basis since March 2010, Neil is delighted with feedback from supporters who have taken the Founders Trail so far and hopes others follow on.
It seemed to good feedback as usual, hopefully, and this is the icing in the cake for them, particularly this room, the Sweetie Shop. It's just wonderful. The Blue Room too, as well, is just wonderful. So many memories for so many Rangers fans, and so much they don't know about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, that they go around various spots around the city, but then to come back to Ibrox and do the tour as well is great for them.
And to see we started off in a public park in Fleshers Hall in Glasgow Green, back to this remarkable stadium. But there's still connections with the past in here, the Moses McNeill Trophy from the Gairloch Head Sports of 1876. That's just a wonderful thing to have in here. Peter Campbell's medal next door in the Blue Room, found in a park in East Kilbride. This is wonderful.
Yeah, you must be so happy with the way the Founders Trail is not only kicked off and grown arms and legs to an extent, it's actually really taken off and people are talking about it all over the place.
It's astonished us, to be honest. We thought it would maybe last a couple of trips, and it's just built up. Last October we had to do 3. We've got a crowd coming from Greenock, I think it's in June. They've taken the whole bus, so there'll be another 2 or 3 trips in June as well as the usual monthly ones. The feedback's just been wonderful, and it's great there is an interest in the club, and it's now telling the truth about the founding of the club. We found a report last week, I think it was. Someone had given a talk at a Rotary Club. Celtic were founded a charitable institution. Rangers were formed by 4 Protestant ship workers from, Belfast. And so where did this come from? We've done the research. Gary Ralston particularly done the research, and we're building on the work that people Robert McElroy in the past have done. So the truth is getting out and giving the 4 boys the credit that was due to them building this wonderful institution.
Yeah, of course. I think you did 14 tours or trails last season. It looks as though you're going to be doing at least that again this year, if not more.
Yeah, it looks like it, and we're finding out more and more. I've already said to you, yesterday I met with William O'Neill's great-great-granddaughter, someone I'd known for years and knew nothing about the family connection, but they did, and she's provided a lot of information. So it's wonderful. There's more and more. The story's getting bigger and bigger by the day.
That's all from us for now, but join us again tomorrow for more Blues news when we'll start building up to Saturday's game with Dundee United. Until then, bye for now.